Welcome everyone to Elevate with V. So excited to be here with you. So this podcast was inspired by my own healing journey. I aspire to share amazing healers and coaches to help us each elevate on our journey so we can keep aligning with our soul's calling and gifts. I can't wait to introduce my guest today, Paula. Thank you to Lowell for connecting us through his group. We were both very drawn to Telos and Lemuria, and you were a catalyst for me joining Clubhouse. You were sharing your gifts as an evidential and spiritual medium, and that transformed into many deep, insightful conversations with a smaller group of people. It's been such a delight and pleasure to get to know you, and I feel such a strong connection beyond this lifetime. And I can't wait to learn more about your journey today. So, welcome, Paula.
Thank you so much, Benita. I'm so grateful to be here and so happy to share the information I have to share. Thank you so much. I
Oh,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. You're welcome. And Paula's official bio is Paula went from being a typical suburban sports mom to a medium and a published author of a groundbreaking book that delves into the wisdom of Lemurian beings from Telos. Her quest for understanding what the hell is going on was ignited by a spontaneous and spiritually transformative experience that changed the course of her life. Get ready to embark on a thought-provoking exploration of the metaphysical as we dive into her fascinating story of enlightenment and discovery. Ooh, this is going to be good. I can't wait to jump in, Paula. This is so exciting. So, as you know, Paula, this show is all about highlighting healing journeys and how we have each navigated through many storms to get to our silver linings. So I'm going to actually ask you, since you mentioned it in your bio, we would love to hear about the spontaneous and spiritually transformative experience that you shared in your bio. Do share.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to share this because, I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, how did this all happen? But it really was one of those things where I was a mom of three boys. And, to be honest, I was pretty agnostic. I recognized that there might be a higher force out there, but I sort of felt like, well, if there is a higher force or a higher being, that person, that being, whatever it is, they dropped us off and they took off. They're gone. We are on our own, right? And that was pretty much my assessment. I grew up Lutheran in upper, northern Minnesota. I had a background of Christianity, but in all honesty, it wasn't like hardcore. It was kind of like more like a social club. Like, could I meet boys there, right? And go to summer camp and meet some cute guy from another town or whatever. That's kind of like, what it was for me. But I did listen to the information. I went to Sunday school, every Sunday. But, by the time I was in my 40s and sort of been through life, I sort of was like, okay, I don't know, we're on our own. And so, but I did major in political science, and I did believe in humanity having the ability to make change through good policy and government. And I was really excited to graduate. I graduated in 1993, 99, 92, 93 from the University of Minnesota with a political science degree. And I was so excited to major in that because it was coming, the Berlin Wall had come down. There was agreements to take down the warheads for nuclear wars. I just felt like, wow, we can finally start taking this money, and instead of using it for defense purposes, blowing each other up, we can reallocate those resources into human potential for education and job development, and just really go hardcore with human development. So I did an internship at the University of, at the Minnesota State Legislature. And I got there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. There was a couple of legislators that were really committed. You could see their passion. But for the most part, it was kind of a dead system. And I just decided, I was just going to go into the work life, and I got married and had kids, and I did become, political manager for a couple of candidates that I believed in. They were kind of the underdog, and I wanted to say, you know what, we do need representation. The underdog does too. And so I worked for that, and then I worked for the Obama campaign when he first came out. And I thought, I really believe in this guy. I really believe I want to get behind him. So I sent money and I signed up for his campaign. And then after he won, I can't tell you how happy I was, invited to his inauguration. But so this is 2008. By 2012, I realized, I said, oh my gosh, this guy's been in for 4 years and everything's gotten worse because, we went through the 2008 economic crisis. We started giving money to the banks. The banks did not in turn give it to the people, because a lot of people lost their homes, lost their jobs, there was a lot of, I was a high school teacher. I was a long-term substitute. So the kids knew me really well. And a lot of those kids' parents went through an immense emotional financial crisis during that. And these were middle-class kids. Normally, their parents did everything right. They went to school, they were loyal at their jobs, they paid their bills, they paid their taxes. And these kids were coming to me talking about severe emotional pain in the family, and how they were going through severe emotional pain, and how they were very worried about graduating and moving forward, because they're like, my parents did everything right. I don't know what to do. Do I go to college? Do I get a job? Because we're 4 years, 2012, we were coming off this crisis. And I was at my kitchen sink in 2012, and I said, okay, the Obama administration wasn't really there for the people, right? Just was not in the way that I expected him to be. The Republicans, I didn't feel like were there for us. So I'm like, it doesn't matter what party's in or what position they're in. This is not the path. Like, politics is not the path. And I just dropped politics altogether. I'm just like, I'm not voting for anybody anymore. But then I said to myself, okay, so what is going on? And I looked from when I graduated to 2012, which had been 20 years. And I said, my God, everything has deteriorated. We are supposed to be getting better, not worse. And here we are. Suicide was up. The economic disparity was up. Health was down. People were on antidepressants in record numbers. Poverty was still high. And I'm like, and I sat at my kitchen sink, like with my hands wet at the soap, with 2 dishwashers, because I had 3 kids. I was filling both dishwashers. So probably a little tired too. But I said, I just stopped for a moment. I looked out my window and I'm like, what the hell is going on? What the hell's going on? And all of a sudden, as I said that, like everything that I tried to create in my own mind as to what was going on just dropped. I really wanted to know what the hell was going on. And as soon as I said that, this voice said to me, this very stern masculine voice said, Paula, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're not going to get that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And I turned my head and said, what? And as I was turning my head to find out who was talking to me, suddenly my body just got really big, much bigger than the kitchen, much bigger than the planet Earth. It was huge. And I looked between my hands, and there was the planet Earth, a tiny little ball between my hands. And it shifted, and it shifted back. And then boom, I was back at my kitchen sink. And I said, I think I just had a stroke. I think I need to go to the emergency room, right? So I kind of did a body check. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Forget what the hell's going on. What the hell was that? I was like, what's going on? And I said, okay, I'm okay. I feel okay. In fact, in some ways, I felt like this tether had been cut. Like I felt a little bit more free, but I didn't know why. But I decided I probably didn't have a stroke. And I said, well, I'm just going to leave the dishes and I'm just going to go to bed. So, um, so I went to bed, and then the next morning I woke up and a poem downloaded in my head. It was just, and I don't like poetry, to be honest with you. Like, I like poetry now, but back then I just wasn't poetry. And so this poem downloaded in my head, and it just, I'll give you a little bit of it. Just started with, if fairy dust could be sprinkled across the sands of time, it would undo all the harms I've done to you and to those, and still to more of whom I do not know. But the fairies must have gone along with their magical dust. And it went on that way. So then it was like, what are the fairies and the dust? And I'm hurting somebody and I don't know who they are. Like, what's going on? But it's quite a long poem, right? And so I wrote it down. And then when my husband came back from his business trip, I said, I wrote this poem. I have no idea what it means. Can you read it and see what it means to you? Maybe you can have a clue. He read it. He's like, I don't know. It's one of it's a poem. You know, poems they mean different things to different people. And who knows? Everybody just takes it for the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I think there's something here I need to learn. He's like, I don't know. And throw it. And I said, oh, okay. So then I sort of spent that summer sort of like thinking about it. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And then in the fall, I came upon a little book by Deepak Chopra. And I think it was like the 7 Secrets to Success. It was like a little tiny book. And I could relate to Deepak Chopra. I couldn't before that because I felt like he was like a celebrity guru and a goofy guy. But I was like, wow, I read this book and it talked a little bit about quantum physics and how a wave and a particle can change its behavior based on the observer. You know, if you observe a wave and a particle, it might behave differently with one person looking at it as opposed to another. And then he kind of went into your mindset pressed upon the particles changes. And I said, oh, I get this. I feel like, oh my gosh, my head about fell off just with that tiny little book. But then I saw a YouTube video and he's like, yeah, you need to meditate. And I'm like, meditate? What's that? And the first time I meditated, I went straight into a relaxed state. Like I didn't have to try. I didn't, you know, and this little orb came to me and it bounced in my inner eye, right? With my eyes closed. And this little orb bounced and it didn't have a face or eyes or lips or anything, but I could tell that it had turned around and told somebody else, a group of people, hey, she's awake. But here's what's funny, but it's going to circle back to the end here. I could tell that these were people and they were sitting at a table, like eating sandwiches, like they were eating lunch together. I just intuited it. I was like, and it wasn't talking to me at all. And then it bounced away. And I'm like, what? And then after that, then I knew I was being escorted and flying over trees in a different land. I was flying over trees. And then that was my first meditative experience. And I don't think I've shared that with anybody before because I figured it's so silly. But now I'm connecting the dots to the end on that. So I started meditating and I started going down this rabbit hole of all this stuff. And I'm like, what? It got in touch with universal laws and moved from there. So that's the beginning of the beginning. Was that helpful?
Oh my goodness. Wow. I love it. Wow. That's a lot to experience from kind of like what your background was and never being connected to any of this to like have that kind of experience. And I'm just amazed that that much came to you in like one meditation. I mean, clearly you were like ready and they were like, okay, let's do this. Let's get her. Let's get her. She's open.
Yeah. Obviously. Confusing for
Oh.
me though. Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure there was a sense of like nobody to talk to because you're like, okay, I don't even know what's going on, let alone trying to articulate this to somebody else. And so you started doing your own research, right? Like you said, you found the books and you started doing the meditation. So Tell us a little bit about, you said then you kind of stepped into like universal laws. Like what was that kind of your next step to kind of lean into to kind of understand what was going on?
That's right. So I came to this realization that there were the rules of the material world, of which from a very young age, I felt like if I could understand the rules of the world, as long as I were to adhere to them and follow those rules, to the best of my ability, I would be given automatic success in my life, with health and money and relationships, right? And so I did exercise every day and I ate all the right things. And I followed the laws in terms of like, how to be, I don't know, I guess government law, because I have political science. I thought if I followed the line, because I was told in college, this is why one of the reasons they said the study of political science is the study of power. And if you understand political science, you understand power. And I said, well, I want to understand power. No, really, right? We know that wasn't true. So I studied all of that and I found, your results were iffy fast. So then I decided, okay, based on this Deepak Chopra little book, he says these are the laws. So his little 7 laws of success, I decided I needed to look deeper into that, because if they're laws, they're not his laws. They're not the teacher's laws. They're what the teacher teaches. So then I started to find that information wherever I could, because I felt like if I could get into alignment with those laws, then I'd really be cooking with gas. I'd really be able to make things happen. So I just went hardcore into that, went really deep into that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit from like that piece into um, when did this sort of connection or understanding begin about there's something going on beyond like what's visible to us, right? Like suddenly you were having an interest in inner earth or something like that. Tell us how you kind of moved into that space.
Right. Absolutely. So I've been studying universal law and trying to even talk to other people about it. But I'd been going about my life in terms of, I guess I was still teaching at this point. My now ex-husband, it was too much for him, right? And I was getting messages, downloads. Now, in all honesty and all disclosure, I had been the type of person where I could see the future before it happened in the past. And I would bring these things up to him and he would find it amusing, but also very helpful. Like, for example, I got a download. Now I know it's download. And I explained to him as a download in 2003 that there was going to be an economic crash in 2008. And that this voice told me to tell Greg, my now ex-husband. And so I told him, and he was like, okay, a great reason to save money, right? To just get financially solvent. We were in a lot of debt. We were a very young family. We'd opened a business and had to close it. We were in debt. And so as I told him that, then we constructed a plan to get out of debt and become very financially solvent before 2008. And to be honest, he must have been receiving the information how, because we did very well for ourselves. It only took a couple years to get ourselves really financially in a good place. And then both of us were equally astonished to see that the 2008 thing really happened. You know, I didn't have any faith in what I said, and I don't think he did either. So it was kind of a surprise. So I'd always kind of done that. So that was, but I think everybody does that a little bit. You know what I mean? Maybe not with this crash thing, but I think everybody does that. Like we all have that ability, but I just sort of recognize it because that was a big one. So as I say that, but I was also getting downloads about our history as humanity. Now, why would I get that? Well, because I took courses in history. So I was interested in our history. I was interested in our government, but it gave me another version of it. It's like, here's the other version that's just as true as the lower version. It's just a higher vibration version of it, right? All truths have a frequency. So it said, okay, here's our, and so I would talk to him about it. He's like, oh my gosh, I just can't, this is too much for me. Like, I can't deal with this anymore. And so we were kind of moving away from each other. But I was still teaching, and I was working. And then I moved with my brother's tax business because it served well after my mother had an illness and I could do it remote. So that's how I moved into that. Now, while I was moving into working with my brother's company, I got a message saying, Paula, you need to take a mediumship class. Now, I pretty much adopted, like, oh, I'm like, a mediumship is real. I wasn't like questioning that, but I didn't see myself as a medium in any way, shape, or form. But it said, you will get an email and you'll know that this is the class you need to take. Sure enough, I got an email and I'm like, I guess this is the one. So I started with the class, but I didn't see myself as a medium, didn't have that much interest in mediumship. So I didn't go to class because I was busy with work. I had a job. So I would sort of come and go with the class. And like, even the other classmates, they're like, I don't know, you never showed up. But I know that the times that I was there, I could do it. I don't want to say, but it was pretty, I could get information and it would even surprise me. And I'm like, wow, I'm not even trying. This just happens. Probably because I didn't have any pressure. It's just like, it's just easier to flow. And then later on in that fall, I had a family member, he's a young man that died of suicide, one of my family members. And the night of his passing, he came to me in a very, very bold way. And with details about him that I didn't know, because I didn't know him very well. He grew up in a different state and I just didn't know the kid very well. But the details about him were very strong. And so, of course, I attended his funeral, and his family, I would do things like, there was just information that he would give me. And then after I would speak to his parents, they would confirm the information that he gave me. And he did this. He told me what to say and do upon meeting his parents to bring peace to them. He knew what to say and he told me what to say. And because of that, the pain was dissipated a great deal. And after that, it said, you need to leave your brother's business and you need to pursue this full time because you see the power of it, of the healing in it. And that's when I did that full time. Now, while I was learning mediumship and taking from very good instructors, this is the Middle Earth part. So I was cleaning out my car because I'm always getting downloads when I'm doing domestic work. Things happen to me when I'm washing dishes, doing laundry, and washing out my car. And so I heard this word, Shambhala, said to me. And I said, whoa. And I've learned, like, when spirit says something, you take notice. Like, you don't just brush it off and ignore it. I learned that. So that night I looked up the word Shambhala, and it said that there was a couple of different definitions. There was the song by Three Dog Night. There was that it is a mythical kingdom, an ideal that maybe the earth could be a utopia one day. And then there was the idea that it's a real place, and some Tibetan monks prayed that they would be born there upon their next reincarnation. So I was kind of like mixed between the three, and I thought, well, I don't know, but because it came to me the way it did, let me put it in my affirmations. And I'm going to play chicken with the universe because I've been studying, universal law for years now. This is many years. I'd study universal law. And I said, I know that if I write something down and I repeat it as an affirmation day and night, it must come true. It must come true in some way, shape, or form. Did I believe it that Shambhala would come to me? So I said, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have guided and been guided to Shambhala, to liberty and justice for all. Again, because I'm a political scientist, I want liberty and justice for all. And I did that for a year and a half, not believing, it just became a habit. Didn't really think about it. It wasn't like a yearning. It was like, I'm just going to play chicken with the universe, see what happens. And in 2022, spring of 2022, by this time I'd found Clubhouse and working with other light workers and doing mediumship readings. And this was before you were on there. I said, calling all light workers. There's a lot going on right now with supply chain issues and fuel issues, and the Ukraine war had started. I said, we all need to get together and see how we can support. And during a day in meditation, I was meditating, and all of a sudden I hear, I hear this, and it's a loud, clear voice too. And it's a young guy. He's young. He's like, hey, we heard your call. We're light workers too. We came to join you. And downloading some information, like we're from Telos, and then guiding me to look at the May 22nd congressional hearings about UFOs. And I said, well, I didn't know about that. Like, I didn't know that there was, because I'm kind of off the news, right? I think many of us on this path, we're not tapped into CNN and Fox News anymore, are we? We know what we'll get what we need to know in the proper way, but we're not tuned in. I said, well, I didn't know this was happening. And, you know, congressional hearings on UFOs and UAPs. And I'm not into UFOs and UAPs anyway. I know aliens exist. I know they're a higher dimension, but they're just not my wheelhouse. I'm working with people's dead relatives. So, you know, and then it was like Telos. And by the way, you know, get Diane Robbins' book and read it. And then, you know, it was kind of like this happening. And then I was also getting messages from Sojourner Truth, who's a historical person, slavery abolitionist and women's rights, you know, advocate. And she said to me, this was all during this whole time. She said, the first generation of free people have already been seeded. And she used the term seeded, SEEDED. Now, I've never used the term seeded, or I don't know what that is. I had to ask somebody else what seeded means. I don't still really understand, and I said, well, whatever's going on, it's happening fast. And so I read the Diane Robbins books, and then this was on my birthday, June 19th, that this was all starting. And then it moved into, you're going to write a book. And that's when all this energy started just flowing through me. And I started writing the book, you know, around my birthday. And that was how I knew about Inner Earth and Telos. That was my path to Shambhala. That was Shambhala revealing itself in the way it needed to through Telos. And then it was through Diane Robbins' book to find out that Shambhala is the governing center of the Agartha network. You know, all this was just, now I'd heard that there were inner earth beings in Shambhala, but, you know, it wasn't one of those things that was integrated into my experience or interest, you know. So there was awareness, but not connectedness until now. And now this is our Telos. This is our end goal as humanity, to start receiving spirit communication to guide us to the Telosian people. So.
Love it. Oh my gosh, Paula, so interesting. And there's many things that I've never heard before. So I'm also very intrigued to really hear all the pieces of the puzzle that have brought you to where you are today. So in terms of timing, the book, when you started writing it, were you aware of more than, oh, Telos is a place, and you got the communication that, hey, we want to connect with you? And was it through the process of writing the book that you got connected then to like Lowell's group? What was the timing of this?
Yeah, really good question. So I was inspired, like I was told this, you have to get going on this fast. You got to get started on it right now. And with the book. So I got Diane Robbins' book, but of the two of them, there's Telos, and then there's the Hollow Earth one. And I don't have, there's two of them that she has. Now she has like 5 books, but those are the 2 main ones. And so I started writing the book before I really, and then when I'd finished my session with writing for the day, because I started my day at 5:30 in the morning, and they were very specific about me starting very early, getting up immediately, jump up, get out of bed, make your bed, do your exercises, take your dog for a walk, and then you have your butt in that seat at 6:15 every day. And I had to have my butt in the seat at 6:15 in the morning every day to start writing. So I did. I mean, but I had the energy to do it. It wasn't difficult to do. It was just like, this is what it is. This is the discipline that I need to make this happen. It has to happen fast. So, but I would do my writing during the day, and then I would many times take a break. And my break, they would say, okay, we're going to practice our communication with you. So we're going to have you get in the car, and we're going to direct you left, right, left, right. And then we're going to take you to somewhere different every day. And we're going to give you some information on it, right? So this is where I understand the joy of what heaven is like, because it didn't have to be with a Lamborghini, didn't have to have a swimming pool and a mansion. That's not true heaven. I mean, those things are great. Don't get me wrong. And we enjoy them, but it's a far cry, and it's just corn husks compared to this. Let's say you've been writing for the day and you've finished writing, and you hear this song playing in your head, and it's a Disney song, and it's like the Little Mermaid song. You know the Little Mermaid song, right? And it's playing in your head over and over again, but it's kind of playing also with Let's Go Fly a Kite. Do you know Let's Go Fly a Kite, right? It's a Disney song, I think. So those 2 songs are kind of playing in your head. And then Spirit says, get in your car and take your dog with you, because you're going to take a walk with the dog, and go for a walk at this particular park. You know, left, right. Here we are at this park. And you start walking. And what is hanging from a tree right in front of you? But a kite in the shape of a mermaid. Right?
Wow.
You're like, oh my gosh, something loves me so much to communicate with me and play with me in this way. Now, what would you take? Like a mansion and a job with a headache, or that every day? Something is so connected to you and speaking to you that's that level of play. Or, you know, go here and go left, right, and you're going to come upon a walking bridge. And by the way, somebody has hung a beautiful mobile from that bridge. And guess what? You come right upon as the park rangers are taking it down, because that's not supposed to be there, you know, and you catch it right in time before it goes away, right? You feel so loved and connected. Or get in the car and we're going to go here, and then you come upon a neighborhood that you've known from the past because you're from the area. And they say this, that now it's a beautiful little neighborhood with cute little houses, and there are all kinds of families swimming at the swimming pool, loving, you know, being there, really harmonious. There's community of people, and Spirit telling you, this is going to be we have found that humanity likes this type of community, and we have created one like this in Inner Earth. Things like that, right? So that you feel comfortable in your transition to Inner Earth, whoever comes, right? And you're like, wow, you know, this is heaven on earth. And how am I so lucky, being the schlump that I am, to experience this? You know, I don't want to be self-effacing, but come on. I am the most average person in the world. Like, I can't even explain to you. I'm not. you know? And I think to myself, this makes a lot of sense. This is for all of us. This is for all of us. So then what happened is, then closer in the afternoon, after doing that, I would read her books. And then it was at that point that I was connecting all the dots from many years from the past, my memories of the things I've studied, the things I've learned, the things that have happened to me. And this is the most appropriate use and purpose of your memory. It's to recall so that's beneficial in synchronistic events for what's happening with you now. It's never supposed to drag you down memory lane in a way of nostalgia. I wish I was back there, or in trauma. That was horrible and I'm still there. That's not how the memory is supposed to be used. It's supposed to be used to connect the dots in synchronistic events today. So that's the higher use of the memory. That's the purpose of it. Yeah. Then I'd read her book, and then it became clear how the ending of her book connects to the beginning of the book, which is our humanity's path to Telos, how we've been managing our way there, how we've been trying to get there, kind of push, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 1 steps forward. And how really during the 1940s, right before World War II in the late 1800s, how we were ready to take a quantum leap. Mediumship was very much a part of people's lives. We had 9 million people that had joined the spiritualist church, and women were head of it because mostly women were mediums. And they were speaking of terms of spirit was telling them of abolishing slavery. Spirit was telling them of women's rights. And at that same time, there were many scientists, male and female, that were developing the electromagnetic energy field. And we were supposed to only be in the game of using gas and oil for machinery mobility for just a short time, 50 years or less than 100 years. And we should have made the quantum leap into the electromagnetic energy field in the early 30s, preferably. Tesla actually had a device that was that could light up without cords in the 1800s. Yeah, late 1800s, and we didn't, pursue that. And what the book told me was, because we use the electromagnetic energy field instead of for communication, for freedom of information, instead of for free energy, for advancement of human goods, we used it instead for the atom bomb. That was the choice we made. And it's like they watch us to see which choice we make, right? Because I feel like every civilization gets to that point. Which one are you going to use it for? And because we used it for nuclear, we put zero, very little dollars into electromagnetic energy for the purpose of human good. We put $2 billion and thousands of people to work for destruction. And because I know natural law and how law works, whether you're aware of it or not, you're a part of it because you put your tax dollars towards it. So everybody, whether they knew it was happening or not, we all get to pay the price. And the price is your civilization decided it wasn't going to move forward. And then there's the gestational time it takes to completely die, right? And then there's the spirit communication to, hey, if you want to be with us, understand natural law, follow it to the best of your ability, and we'll start communicating with you to tell you the path there. And we invite you to tell others so we can see how they respond to that, because we're monitoring everybody. And we're seeing what the percentage is or the chance is that you will go along with moving yourself forward as an individual, that the civilization is collapsing. And I am an evidential medium, you know that. I always need evidence of anything that I say. I have to have proof. And as I was finishing the book in January, I actually self-published it in January 17th. I was watching a 60 Minutes episode. Now we know 60 Minutes is, if 60 Minutes is reporting something, that means it's like old news, like everybody has it, right? Like they're not necessarily always reporting the most forward stuff, right? They're not edgy for the most part. So they had done a story on how we're in the midst of a sixth extinction. So I said, okay, I have to believe what they're telling me because we have actual scientific proof of it. We're in the midst of an extinction. And now I understand when catastrophes like this happen, we think a whole civilization is lost or dies. But now we know that some people go to Inner Earth, are invited in, and they start their new civilization in Inner Earth with these harmonious laws. And they keep their culture, but they live in harmony with each other. So that's what I found out. Now I know what the hell's going on. That's what the hell is going on. That's why I kept seeing disintegration. And I couldn't understand it. Why? This makes no sense. And now I understand why I was seeing disintegration instead of growth and development. Yeah.
Wow, I love it so much, Paula. Wow, that's so fascinating. So I know the book is already published, and we're going to make sure to link that in the bio section when this podcast gets released next week. But what was the purpose of the book? What do you think
Mhm.
was the overarching reason that there was so much, almost kind of like pressure for you to like, we're going to do this every day. We're going to get this done. This needs to get out. Please share.
Girl, that's exactly what I said. I said, what is the hurry? This is so nutty and crazy. What is the hurry? This is going to be one of those books that's going to sit on a shelf, get dusty. Somebody's going to pull it down and be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's an interesting read. So yeah, so the rush was, here's what's interesting. I was not aware of Dr. Stephen Greer's work really before my book, but my book was published in January. And then lo and behold, he comes out with a movie or a documentary in June of 2023. So my book is out in January of 2023. His documentary comes out June of 2023 called The Lost Century, talking about all the same things that the Telosians were telling me to write, which was we had an opportunity back then to make a different choice and we didn't, right? What his book doesn't say is that we're in collapse. His is let's raise money to start developing the electromagnetic energy field. Mine says that's the most difficult path you could take to do. The best thing to do would be to connect with the Telosians directly, because here's the deal. If you have a village in Africa and they don't have any clean water, no health care, no means of income, are you going to tell them, hey, good luck, getting that pump for the water. Good luck in putting that well together. Good luck in creating sanitation opportunity. Wouldn't you just give it to them because you already have the technology? No. He's like, they already have the technology. Now it's on our end to figure it on our own. No, that's not how you help. You just come in when they're ready. And the Unstoppable Foundation does that. They don't help any village until they're willing to make the changes that they need to warrant these higher level services, meaning don't marry off your 12-year-old little girl to a 40-year-old man. You got to stop doing that. You have to send your kids to school. You can't keep them home to be, doing those menial domestic jobs. Send them to, otherwise we're not going to give you this stuff, right? And that's what Telosians are saying too, not in a mean way, but it would just be throwing bad after, good after bad. Why would you give that to a corrupt village that's corrupting their girls and raping them? You wouldn't, you'd say, everybody has to step up their game. And so that's what they're doing. So that's what my book says. We all have to step up our game, and then all these technologies will come to us. And Stephen Greer says, we're the ones who have to suck it up, buttercup, and try to figure out how to do these technologies on our own. But it's the same material. It's exactly the same, but it had to come out before his, I guess. And I don't know why still, because it's not really clear. It's only August since his book came out, or his documentary came out. But then also what was happening is there was an acceleration with the disclosure part with, so the congressional hearing was pretty much a lead balloon in May of 2022. Like it just, nobody knew about it. It was sort of nothing. It was a nothing. It was like a big dead balloon, right? It was a nothing burger. But then this guy named David Grush from the Pentagon himself, from the inner workings of the government, came out with this really amazing, detailed claim that the United States government has been aware of UAP craft, UFO craft, since like the 1930s, and they've been doing reverse engineerings. They've got biologics of extraterrestrials, and he is very much a valid source. And what was bigger is when he made this claim, the Attorney General said it was valid and it was urgent we address it immediately. And then that's when we had the congressional hearings in July 26th of 2023. So in my mind, I thought me talking about Telos was way beyond what the collective could receive. Like I just didn't feel. But then this guy comes along and is saying all these things, and these congressional members are saying, we want to know more, and we're going to press until we get the information. So now I understand they could see what was happening long before it happened. And what's the first chapter in my book? And do I trust it? No, I just write about it. It says the universe knows what's going to happen long before it happens. Therefore, those that are in harmony with it can take advantage of the opportunities, and the ones that are not in harmony will receive the destruction of it. So it told me already that it knew what was happening long before it happened. And I was like, this is crazy, because I'm still of this human mind, doing my best. But there it was. It said, you got to hurry, you got to hurry. And I did have to hurry, because this is all happening now. Yeah. And unfolding big. Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that incredible? It's just, I think what I'm loving about what you're sharing is just this level of surrender and trust that you had to go through. And, from what you're sharing, I mean, it felt like it was completely channeled through you, in terms of the information coming. And, I love the examples that you had given. I know I'm going a little bit back in the conversation of how they're like, okay, this is what we're going to go today. Just trust us. We're going to guide you. And then, it's almost sort of like helping to build trust, even though I know that at that point you were already like very deep into your mediumship skills. I feel like so much of that is about just trusting and just saying, okay, I believe, I receive, I believe, I receive. And also probably in conjunction with allowing the information from the book to just flow versus you going up in your head and saying, oh, should I write this? Should I not write this? Does this feel right? Does
Yeah.
it feel right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest with you, with the way they delivered the information, with the evidence that I needed, I'm not, and one thing that I've always said is that I love channeled work, and I read it all the time. I love it. I listen to it. I'm obsessed with it. But for me, one thing that I've always said as a teacher, and I've told the kids, I said, look, here's the deal. Don't do any actions, and don't let anything come out of your mouth that you're not willing to sign your name to, right? And channelers many times would be like, I had no idea, I'm learning along with you, right? So everything that I say, it's because I've done the 10 years of study with it. And then it feels right, because it's become a part of me as a person. So when I say something, or when I receive something, like spirit already knows. It's going to guide me to some documents. It's going to guide me to a website. It's going to guide me to evidence to back it up. And it does it right away. That's how I was able to write it so fast. It said, okay, we're saying this, confirm it here. Yeah. So then I could trust it. Yeah. Because it backed it up with evidence. Because I'm not going to say something unless I can back it up with my own feeling, my own heart, my own experience, other people's experiences, because I believe in them, or in documents. Yeah.
I love that. That makes so much sense because they know who the material's coming to. And for you, that was very important. Like you work based on evidence. You're like, I need the
Right.
evidence.
And it could be that the people that are going to be reading it will also be those type of people. I'm going to attract those kind of people. So, but
Makes a lot of sense, Paula. And like, I was just sharing this with someone else today. It's like, everything that we put out, whatever that is, whether it's my podcast, your book, it's like the people are just waiting to receive it. It's almost like they were waiting for the information. So you had to write the book so that they could receive it.
that's right. They already know it. They're just looking for the evidence of it. I'm just another form of evidence. We all know this. It all comes from the one mind, right? It all comes from the one mind. So there is no other mind. We all know this already. And we're sort of like slowly releasing it to each other. And then it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because things that would have been revealed to me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have received. Like this whole Telos. I don't know that I received the whole Telos thing 10 years ago. This was a timing thing. I had to be ready for it. So I get that when other people are that same ilk, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So much. So now that the book is out and, there's so many other pieces of information, like you said, that are happening externally to validate for us that, wow, there is more information coming out. There is disclosure happening. What is your feel right now in terms of just the messages that you're receiving and your connection with Telos? Because they're obviously in connection with you, like you are also channeling information and sharing that with others.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I think we talked a little bit about this before we started the recording, but after I finished the book in January, I was in limbo. I was confused and in limbo. They would say things like, "Oh, you need to promote your book." But I'm like, "Okay, great. Then tell me how to promote the book." I don't know how to do these things. This is not my wheelhouse. I'm a worker, I'm a doer. I'm not one much for social media. I don't know how that works very well. I'm not interested in social media. Then I said, you probably should have chose somebody that was interested in doing that sort of stuff. You got to choose your people well. So I was like, okay, I'll do the best I can. So, I kind of talk about it on Clubhouse, or I think I posted it on Facebook a couple of times, but it's just not, in my gut, I wasn't feeling the strength of it, but I'm like, okay, I'll do what I can. But then I got to this point where, so the last day when I was writing chapter 12, because there's 12 chapters in the book, chapter 12 was started on August 19th. So the book kind of started June 19th. 60 days later, August 19th was chapter 12. It was the kind of the completion. And I looked something up and it said that was the UN Day for Humanity, like Humanitarian Day. And I said, well, how perfect this is. Chapter 12, it's about Telos. It's, Humanitarian Day. I said, how synchronistic. And it wasn't long after that I'd started writing when my mother called me and she said, Paula, your brother has died. He died the night before. So the day that I started the 12th chapter, the day of completion, Humanitarian Day, I found out that my brother, who lived in the same area as my cousin who died, he had died also by suicide, my brother. And it was heartbreaking because we had talked extensively about our cousin's passing and how we were going to make sure that wasn't going to happen in our family again. Yeah. So it was heartbreaking. I sort of felt like I was kicked in the head. I was kicked out of heaven. I was experiencing, actually, the night before his passing, the night of his passing, I'd had a very restless sleep. I kept waking up, gasping for air and falling back asleep, and gasping for air and falling back to sleep. And I woke up with like a swollen eye, and my face was swollen. And that was kind of my beginning journey of also the anemia that I was trying to overcome. So over the months, I was trying to overcome anemia. And I say all this to say that I felt my communication with Telos had dwindled. I wasn't as clear. And the more frustrated and angry I got, the less clear the communication. So by the time April came, I got this strong calling to return to my brother's company. So I was working for his company before, and then I had come full circle back around. And I was angry. I said, all this stuff is a bunch of BS. I don't believe in any of it anymore. There's no reason why I should be back here. I should be in heaven. And I sort of was having the same experience as people that have NDE experiences, where they tapped heaven's door and they had a taste of it. And I had a big taste of it. And then I was back in hell. I was back where I started. And I thought, what is going on? Was this all a dream? Was this all, but then, so this is April. So April, I was working and angry. May, I was working and angry, crying to anybody who'd listen to me, saying, what the hell am I doing back here in this position where I was? Because it wasn't the place didn't change, the frequency changed. So it felt like a different place to me. And then it was like, I don't understand why I wrote this book. This is stupid. The book is stupid. This whole thing is stupid. I'm so mad. I don't believe in any of it anymore. I mean, I believed in it, but I felt like I'd done something wrong to be kicked out. I definitely believed in it. But and I'd had this great connection with you in the fall. And Lowell, I found, so I didn't even really believe in Telos yet last summer. Didn't really believe in it. I thought, maybe this is somewhat of a weird dream. But then I found Lowell had actually gone in. And what were the chances of me finding that obscure episode telling of his story of actually physically visiting Telos? Here's another weird thing. So did you know that Lowell and I are both from Minnesota? And we kind of have the same background. We both went to the University of Minnesota, the same school, and we both majored in political science. He quit, I finished. And then we both have our eldest child named Alex. And Alex is mentioned, Lowell's son Alex is mentioned by the Telosian that let him in. He said, we know your son, Alex. So that was kind of, and I thought, this has got to be true. This was the summer of 2022. So by April of 2023, I said, how could all this happen? And I'm back at my brother's tax business. This is crazy. This is nuts. So I just didn't believe in it. And then the David Grush thing came in 2023, June, 2 months later. And I said, oh, that's why I was supposed to be in a hurry. And that's why I was supposed to be promoting this. But no, I had to get into my own sob story of it all and make it all about me, which is also something you should not do from a universal law perspective. It's not about you, but it sure felt like it. It was awful. Anyway, so long story short, now I've come back out, and now I'm promoting my book and conversing more and connecting in a real genuine way with people, because I still can't do the social media thing. I just suck at it. I'll do what I can, but you know what? There's got to be some help on that, because I just want to hang out with the people I like hanging out with, like you and all the folks from Clubhouse, and I just want to be natural and genuine and just move things along. But then also with what I'm doing now, it's kind of becoming clear some things I'm working on. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that, Paula, because I think, this is the other thing that a lot of times people look at people like us who are out there doing our work and spreading our light, trying to share awareness is, we go through lots of ebbs and flows ourselves. I mean, this is not like just this beautiful
Oh,
rainbow
perfect.
ride, right? It's
Oh,
like bumpy, and there are times when we will literally go into the space of like, what is going on, like what am I doing, what does this mean, and does this have purpose? And just the fact that you even shared that you were questioning everything, because it's almost like you probably felt like, did I just take 10 steps back? Like I literally kissed heaven, I was on this road, what am I doing in this space that I do not want to be here? Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, I didn't know. You're right. And you don't know. And so that is the faith in, not in just whimsical things, but faith in understanding spiritual law and allowing it to play out the way it wants to play out, and just participating in it. And I think you can go kicking and screaming. I don't think you have to be perfect. I know that during that time, kicking and screaming, I do feel there was empathy for me. There was complete silence. I wasn't hearing anything. But then there was also a little bit of a chuckle in the background, like, oh, she'll get it eventually. She'll see. She just has to keep moving forward. She'll get it in a minute. So it's kind of a little bit of a chuckle, a little bit of humor in my tantrums, like you laugh at a 2-year-old that's screaming, yelling, or not, getting candy or something.
That
So
makes sense. That makes sense. And you know what? They're allowed to like have some chuckles at us too. I mean, they're probably looking like, oh my goodness, look at what you all chose as the human experience. Yeah, it's going to be all over the
yeah,
place. And I think sometimes that's a beautiful reminder too, right? Because I think it's so easy for us to get in these conversations and just be in this flow, and we're just getting each other and it just makes so much sense. But at the same time, we came here to experience this life surrounded by all these different things that don't always make sense, that upset us, that can do many different things. And I think, what I'm realizing, and I look at this every day, is I just have a lot more choices, right? Like you said, like, listen, if I just want to be like sitting in a corner and crying for like an hour, I'm going to do it.
I
I'm
do
just
it.
going to do it. But at the same time, I also know I have a choice, right? I can either stay there or say, okay, do I want to shift to the higher perspective or do I not? And that's the beauty of it. We get to choose because we know that we actually have that essence of being able to do that, right? It's not external, oh, they're doing this to me or that said and this happened. It's like, no, we have enough inner standing now to be like,
You know,
I think if I want to like play it, I get to play it how I want to play it, which is
right.
beautiful, right? Because, even a couple of years ago, I would have never looked at it that way. So I love that there's that sense of freedom to experience whatever we want without suppressing it, right? Like the fact that you shared your experience from the past couple of months, like you could have said, like, well, I'm just not going to talk about that. But you were open to share.
Oh no, because that's part of the whole thing. I mean, it's ugly too. You cry ugly. You cry ugly. You're not necessarily nice, you know. Even like, oh, I'm mad at even at the grocery store. I'm gonna be like just to be mad. But the law is gonna get you too. Like you got to be willing to take the beat down for what you put out is what you're gonna get back.
Right.
You
It's like
know?
that boomerang. It's coming back. If you're going to put
Gonna
it out
come back
there,
at
it's
me, and
coming
it's like
back.
I better shape up because this is going to come back to me, but I'm just not ready yet. But I also would listen to Abraham Hicks. Probably a lot of your listeners know Abraham Hicks. And what did they say? They said, you know what? Go ahead and take that step one, feel it, and then be willing to allow the step two, because then source knows what you want. And then get to step three as quick as you can. But as far down as you go in step one, you're going to reach the echelon of heights in step three. You do kind of have to take the dip. And I think that's the message from the higher level beings. It's not that they don't experience challenges. It's not that they don't experience step ones, but they got the understanding and knowing that a step one is going to take you into step three. And all you have to do is just let it happen. And they know it better than we do. I think because it happens so much faster for them, right? The manifestation is instantaneous. I have a desire, I release, I let go, and then there it is. Whereas our time frame is a lot slower. So, probably
Yes.
so we can correct some things before it, manifests. But So they've mastered that. That's what they've mastered. Their laws aren't different. They aren't, um, they're not free of challenges, but they're free of the desperation of a challenge because they know that the solution is there. Otherwise, all they have to do is catch up to the solution, and catching up to the solution is their growth and development. And that's how they get to that next level. So it's the same for all of us. It's just our perception about it. So
Yes.
yeah, it was ugly for 2 months. It was really awful. I was angry. And a lot of people had to listen to me for days on end. I feel bad about that now, but I am grateful to them for doing that and hope that I can be there for somebody else's downtime. So yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. And we all have that, like you said, Paula. And so, one of the other things too is in what you were sharing, I think, for a lot of us, there is also this component of, as a human being, like we have so many emotions and also our thinking mind. So sometimes I think that can also get in the way of a lot of these beautiful things that might be, easier for some of the other higher beings or higher frequency beings, because
Yeah.
they don't deal with it at the same level that we do. So
Yeah.
I know for me, that's something that the more that we're able to have that understanding of how that operates for myself or for you, that's when we're able to like make some leaps in that direction. So
For
I
sure.
beautiful
For
like learn.
sure. And I got to reveal to you, one of the times I walked in on one of your card reading rooms that I think you're doing with Phil. And I said, I need this. I guess I accidentally jumped in on it, but then I needed it too, because the card that you pulled for me was absolutely perfect. And it gave me that peace that I needed in that moment. And I think we don't realize that we are the peace to people in ways that they might not even reveal to you. And so I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And, I think this is the beauty of like the things that we're talking about. Like each one of us is here and kind of, shining our light in the way that we know best. And we're also constantly learning and growing and evolving and shifting. And I think it's beautiful because, there's no coincidence to me that you and I are connected, whether it was like through Lowell. And I know that you have a soul connection with him. I feel like I have a soul connection with you. And I know that we're digging into some of these pieces a little bit more on our own time together.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful. It's almost like this is why we're all coming together so that we can support each other in those spaces when we are feeling a little like, the ground from under us is not feeling as stable, or you want to, be in that place where you're feeling like, what is happening? Somebody support me. This doesn't feel right. So I think it's for all of it. So I'm really grateful too. And I'm just so grateful that you joined me today to co-create this beautiful episode where we could learn more about you. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know about you. And of course, to all the people that are listening, all of Paula's information will be in the bio section. And even though she doesn't have this big desire to promote her book, I believe, and I know many other people believe, that it is some of the material that is meant to be received by a lot of people who are looking for that like evidential information that's very timely. So we will do our part through this podcast, and I hope others will like tune in and go check out the book, and that information will be in the bio section as well. And as we're coming towards the end and the close, Paula, I just wanted to ask you if you feel inspired and you want to share a message for the collective or anything else that's coming up. We are so open to receiving.
Oh, thank you. So what has come to me, because we don't know in the beginning, do we? It said to just take any page in my book and read something from wherever my eye lies, something short. Okay. So this is what happened. So this is what it says. Okay, this is interesting. All right. So Bob Proctor expands on his definition of the mastermind to say, when you can get in touch with a group of like-minded individuals operating in an entirely synchronized frequency, you form an energy. Each member takes part in creating this combined energy, leaving everyone better. You offer your talent, your insights, and your connections to help one another level up. We can all be do, and have much more in life with the help of others. Not one of us can do it alone.
Oh,
That's what they told me to do. And that's what I did. It's on page 65 of my book, We, the People of the Land That Used to Be, Telos Revealed. I think that's perfect. What do you think?
oh my goodness. I mean, hello, we're doing a co-creation right now, right? The two of us creating something together. And I love that message so much. And I know it resonates with the two of us because the stuff that we're also doing on the side, but I am so about the co-creation and collaboration. Like those days of trying to do things by ourselves, I think that's the old way. I mean, now
Yeah.
it's about us
The
all coming.
rugged individual.
Yes.
Baloney. What a bunch of crap.
Yes, it's about doing things together. Beautiful, beautiful, perfect message. That was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Spirit, they're amazing how they coordinate these things.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you again so much, Paula. It's been so much fun to have you and to learn all these amazing things about your journey, what you're up to, what you've been through, and this beautiful book that you've put out into the universe. So I just want to thank you again. And I want to thank all of my listeners for tuning in. I hope that there were lots of beautiful nuggets of information and including this message at the end for you to receive. And I can't wait to catch everyone on the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanita.
You're so welcome.